I found the chess club from looking online. I've been playing chess for, a few years on and off. And I thought about, doing some over the board, finding some people to actually play in person. So just got it into the old Google and, you were a really convenient, very close option for me. So yeah, just started coming.
You go to the morning call chess.
Yeah, yeah.
So you go morning call, you go to Envy, you go to Turtle Bay.
Do all
Which is
three of
your
them.
which is your favorite like environment to play chess in?
Probably Turtle Bay. I like all of them, but Turtle Bay might be my favorite. It's just like good music. It's a little less crowded, a little less rambunctious, but Turtle Bay or rather, Envy and Morning Call have their own, ups and downs. I attribute my rise in rating from just a lot of practice. I definitely started to study, openings and end games a lot more once I was over the board. It was one of those things where I knew if I wanted to get better, I would have to start studying a little bit more because, not everybody at the club, but a lot of people at the club, they know their openings, they know their positional chess, they know their end games. So it was definitely a little bit of study and also a little bit of like matchup luck. Yeah. Yeah, I was born here. I've lived here for the majority of my life. I lived in Maryland for 10 years, but I've lived here for the majority. Really, the Downriver Chess Club, in terms of how it's expanded in my life, has been really the only way that I've seen it expand. I really just played exclusively online previously, but it's a really great group of people. I never felt unwelcome. I have social anxiety, and so I was really nervous. Especially the first time you come to any place with social anxiety, it can be really daunting. But just that first night I came, and Al and Kevin were sitting there, and just like make you feel real welcome, and same with everybody else. And I really like the banter. I really like the camaraderie. The playful trash talk is a lot of fun, and then of course you got the competition. So yeah, my best win. Can I say it's a draw?
Sure.
Because I drew against Shy a couple weeks ago. And that was definitely my best draw, my biggest victory, I'll call it. But that same day, I also beat Alan Oren. So I think I finished 3.5 that night. So as a whole, that night was pretty good. And that's also saying because I did win 4 at On V maybe a month prior to that.
Why was it a big deal to draw Shy?
Oh, because Shy's like, if he's not, he's top 2 in the club for, the regulars that come. Um, I've never beaten him or drawn him before. I've never even come close. Yeah, so just like drawing against him, my heart rate was way elevated, hands were shaking. It was good. And that was only round 2, so then I had 2 more rounds to go through. When I'm in time trouble, it's really stressful. It elevated heart rate. I feel like you sometimes spend as much time glancing over at the clock as you do, looking at the board, especially if you're waiting for your opponent to make the move. You're trying to make sure you got your candidate moves. What am I going to do next so I don't waste, any time? And yeah, sometimes your opponent can just throw out something that you didn't even think of, and you use up a couple seconds, and that's all it takes. My favorite person to play against is probably Al. Al's really solid. I know that whenever we play, it's going to be a really good game. And I know that if I'm doing well against him, he's going to call me a name. He's going to curse at me. And he's been cursing at me a lot more lately. So it's a lot of fun.
Have you ever played Jude?
I have not played Jude yet, no.
Have you met Jude?
I have met Jude in passing. I haven't been face to face to shake his hand. Whenever I walk down to Decatur to go to Turtle Bay or on V, I'll usually see him sitting there on the other side of Decatur with his table and his sign. And sometimes he's teaching lessons. Sometimes it looks like he's reading a book. And I've seen him in the club a couple times. I know that he's brought some people that he's met in the street out there, but haven't been able to meet him face to face. Obviously, haven't been able to play a game against them. So
Is this your first like big prize tournament?
this is my first big prize tournament. Yeah.
What do you plan to do if you win the prize money?
Honestly, I didn't even think of that because once I saw I was going to be in the pro section, my goal, went down, maybe a couple wins. But I mean, if I win, I'll probably, pay off some debts and, take my wife to dinner, buy some new shoes. We're planning a trip to San Francisco in a few months. So, just prepare for that.